Welcome back to Usagi Motors, and welcome to the final episode of our Honda Beat saga. The reason that it is the final episode is because I have this little piece of paper right here. This is a Texas certificate of title for a 1991 Honda Beat. That's right, our Beat is here in Texas, fully registered and 100% legal. We've been driving it around, we even took it up to Dallas once. It's been a lot of fun, but the journey it had to go through to get here and the paperwork that we had to deal with was a little daunting. But I have a list right here of all the paperwork that I went through. I'm going to post this list below so you can kind of follow along as I talk about it. But I just wanted to run through this with you guys on camera so that way you kind of know what we had to do to get the Honda to the state that it is in right now. Fully registered and road legal, and 100% state legal and federal legal. So the first thing was that when we left off last time, we had just dropped the car off with the wonderful people at Stacked Inc. They acted as our export broker. All right, they had the car for a while, and we had to, once we got back to Texas, we had to find an import broker to deal with the customs paperwork as the vehicle came in through the port in Galveston. So once you have your export broker squared away and your import broker squared away, there's a bunch of paperwork that you have to get and move between the two, because the import broker and the export broker don't talk to each other. And that's a really frustrating point, but that's one of the ways that you're saving money by doing a majority of the stuff yourself. So this means that you have to get some paperwork from the exporter and keep some of that for yourself, and then send some of that on to the import broker so they can use that to get the vehicle in. So the vehicle's been dropped off at the export broker. They're going to take the vehicle to the DMV or the Bikyunkyoku, and there they're going to deregister the vehicle and get an export certificate. Now when they do this, the Shaken Show is submitted and destroyed, and an export certificate is printed out, and you have a set amount of time for the vehicle to leave the country before the export certificate becomes invalid. I've never talked to anybody that has let the export certificate lapse. I have no idea what would be involved if that happened, so I strongly recommend that you don't let that happen. But once you have that export certificate, or rather once they have that export certificate, they can then set a date on the boat and get the vehicle shipped out via roll-on, roll-off, or RoRo. All right, once the vehicle leaves, you need to start collecting paperwork from your broker, from the export broker, and you have to do this kind of quickly. The first is you're going to need that export certificate. That export certificate is the holy grail of paperwork. You need the original. A copy won't do, a PDF won't do. You need the original, so they have to mail the original to you. Next, you're going to need a copy of the Non-negotiable C Waybill. This is essentially a document showing information about the boat that the vehicle is on. Also, it wouldn't hurt to have a bill of sale. Now the reason I say this bill of sale is because we were in an interesting situation. The vehicle was actually our vehicle in Japan. It was in my name. But when they deregistered the vehicle, because they were in a different prefecture, they had to change the vehicle to their name. So technically, during the voyage from Japan to America, the vehicle was owned by Stacked Inc., and they were selling it to me in the US. So a bill of sale kind of helps smooth things over when you're talking to the DMV here in America later. Now, one thing that I needed that my import broker kept asking for that my export broker had a difficult time supplying were some HS tariff numbers. Now, I never was able to get as many of the HS tariff numbers that my import broker wanted, but still somehow managed to go through. So this is something that maybe you need to talk to your export broker about ahead of time and talk to your import broker about ahead of time, so that way you don't run into the kind of weird gray area problem that we had. After the vehicle leaves the port, you have about a 1 to 2 week period to file an ISF form. This is import security filing. Now, if you don't file this within that 1 to 2 week period, you have like a $5,000 penalty or something like that. It's ridiculous. So this is very important that it gets done. But the person who's going to file it is actually the import broker. So talk to your import broker and get a worksheet. Essentially, they sent me a template of all the information that they needed in order to file their ISF form. So you're going to need some information from the export broker to fill out that template as detailed as possible. And finally, get a shipping invoice from your export broker. So that's pretty much all you're going to need from your export broker. You're going to need to give them a copy of the export certificate. Do not give them the original. The original should only ever go from the export broker's hands to your hands, and then finally to the DMV when you register it. Also, you're going to want to fill out your DOT and EPA forms that say the vehicle is 25 years or older and is exempt from DOT and EPA. This is DOT HS7 and EPA Form-3520. You're just going to fill these out, sign them, scan them, and send them to your import broker. Also, send a copy of the non-negotiable C Waybill that you got from your export broker. Going back to that ISF form, fill as much as that out and give it to the import broker as quickly as possible so they can get the ISF filed. The import broker is going to take all of this documentation and use it to get the vehicle through customs at the port and through immigration. What you need to get back from the import broker is you need to get a notice of arrival. This comes from the shipping company and it's sent to whoever it's supposed to be sent to. In our case, we specified that it was supposed to be sent to the import broker. Now, once the import broker receives that, they're going to send it to you. Now, you need this notice of arrival to pick the vehicle up from the port. A CBP Form-7501. This is a paperless form that the Customs and Border Patrol people use in lieu of the DOT HS7 and the EPA 3520. So it used to be that the DOT and EPA form would go to the import inspector, the Immigration and Customs inspector on the port, and he would stamp it, and then you would receive those original stamped forms and take those to the DOT. But the Customs Border Patrol people are moving to a paperless system, so they take your DOT and EPA form and just file them away and then do all their stuff on the computer. Now you need you need some official documentation to show that the vehicle cleared customs when you're registering the vehicle later. And I went back and forth with my import broker and we couldn't really figure out what was going on, and I was talking to the DMV and we had a massive headache, but finally we figured out which form it was, and that was the CBP Form-7501. The vehicle's cleared customs, it's sitting at the port, it's ready to be picked up. You've got your paperwork from the import broker, you've got copies of everything that you've gotten from the export broker, and now it's time to go get the vehicle from the port. Now, I drove all the way down to Galveston, picked the vehicle up off of the port and drove it all the way back home to here. So in order to get the vehicle off of the port, there's a couple of things that you need to do. The first is that you need to arrange an escort to get onto the port. You can't just walk onto the port by yourself. You need somebody with a Twix card. There are people out there that do this. It cost us $50, and you set it a time and a date, and you go and you meet the person, and he takes you onto the port, and then you can inspect the vehicle and then drive the vehicle off of the port. Now, when you go to the port, take all your paperwork with you. Take everything with you. Most importantly, though, take the notice of arrival, the non-negotiable C Waybill, a copy of the export certificate, and a copy of the translation of the export certificate. Now, the export certificate does have some English on it, but it's not enough. So you need a certified Japanese to English translation of the export certificate. We always use the company Thousand Moons. They're based in Japan. Their turnaround time is really great. And you're going to need the original translation when you register the vehicle at the DMV, but a copy will work for picking the vehicle up at the port. Now you're going to give all this documentation to the person on the port. You're going to inspect the vehicle and see if anything's been broken or stolen. In my case, the shift knob had been stolen. I don't know who steals a shift knob. And I could have gone through all of the paperwork and documentation to register that my shift knob had been stolen, and I might have gotten reimbursed $20, but it wasn't worth it. I just drove it off of port. This is going to change pretty dramatically depending on what state you've imported the car into and you're trying to register the car in. Federal importation is the same across the entire country. So everything up to this point is exactly the same no matter what port it comes in through. However, once you go to register it in the state, each state is different. This is incredibly frustrating. The first is I need to go get a state inspection. So I'm just going to take the car down to my local state inspection place, and they're going to go around and give it a regular safety inspection. You're going to get a piece of paper from your state inspector, and you're going to keep this and give it to the DMV when it's time to go. The next documentation that you need is a Form VTR-68. This is a law enforcement identification number inspection. Essentially what this is you take the vehicle to the auto theft task force, and they walk around it and check out the VIN and make sure that the firewall hasn't been cut up and that it's not a blatantly stolen vehicle. You're also going to need proof of insurance, so make sure that you have the vehicle insured. So you've got these vehicle documents, and you're going to go to the DMV. However, there's one snag, and that is that on the export certificate and the export certificate translation, it says that the owner of the vehicle is Stacked Inc. Now, at the bottom of the export certificate, if I had gotten them to write new owner or current owner is my name, then I may have been able to skip this step. But because my name wasn't mentioned anywhere on the export certificate, I had to get a bonded title. Essentially what this is it's like buying a vehicle that doesn't have a title. And the title says bonded on it, and it'll stay this way for 3 years. Now, it doesn't affect the vehicle registration process in any way. You can still register it like normal. Your name is still written on the certificate of title. You can still sell the vehicle even though it's a bonded title. That's no problem at all. It's just for 3 years it says bonded on it, and that's it. And it costs you a little extra money when the vehicle arrives. So, when you get to the DMV, you're going to have a big collection of paperwork. You're going to need to give them the original export certificate, the original translation of the export certificate, your CBP Form-7501, the original state inspection, the original Form VTR-68, that's the law enforcement one, the original VTR-130SOF, that's the bonded title application. You're going to receive this from the DMV. They'll give it to you, you just fill it out right there. You're also going to need to give them the bond from the insurance company, that's the one that you just went and purchased. The bill of sale helps smooth things over. You're going to need to give them a copy of the notice of arrival, a copy of the non-negotiable C Waybill, and you're going to need to show proof of insurance. Just a stack of paperwork that you give to the DMV. But they're going to look at all this, they're going to go, all right, it seems like everything's in order. They're going to put it into a folder, and they mail it out to Austin. And then in Austin, the head DMV office goes through it all, makes sure everything's in order, and then you'll receive the official title in the mail in a couple of weeks. Now, the local DMV won't send it to Austin unless everything is in order and it looks like it's going to go through Austin with no trouble at all. So they will actually print you out a temporary title. and they will give you license plates. So you can go ahead and put the license plates on your car and put the inspection sticker on the car and get it on the road and drive it, even though your title hasn't arrived in the mail. And when your title does arrive in the mail, you are 100% done, fully road legal, fully federally legal, fully state legal, and it's a Texas car. I hope that this series has kind of cleared up some of the misconceptions about importing a car or owning a car in Japan. If anybody has any questions or comments, feel free to write it down below. I'll try to answer as many questions or comments that anybody has. And it's been a wild ride, and we're really enjoying driving it here. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go drive it right now.